Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a very special guest today, Donnie Reese from War Hippies, which is that's a good name for a band.
Yes, it is. It's a great name for a band. Great dichotomy.
So it's the band is you and Scooter Brown. Tell me a little bit about you, the both of you, and how you guys hooked up. Tell me about your personal background and then how you guys got together and started this band.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was long story short, I was on a full scholarship to college. I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Towers went down. Gave my scholarship back. Joined up in the Army. Went to Iraq in 2004 with the first ID, and then came back. Got back into music. Been doing it ever since. I met Scott in Nashville a few years ago, and and then found out that he was a Marine Corps combat veteran. He served with the first LAR in the invasion in 2003, and we linked up and started playing music, and literally the rest is history. Just we had a great chemistry, and that's how we got together.
So you Miami of Ohio. That's isn't that where Roethlisberger went to school?
It is where Roethlisberger went to school, and it's funny that you say that because I just ran into him in Aspen. I hadn't seen him in 21 years. We walked into Kemosabe. It's like a high-end hat store and like boutique clothing store in Aspen, and walked in. The owners and the manager there are all Miami University graduates as well. And I walked in and I happened to see Ben standing there, and we caught up and ended up running into him like 3 more times that day, and then exchanged cell phone numbers, and been talking since.
That's cool, man. So you guys, you're out of Nashville. I like that city. It's all right. It's like
Yeah,
kind of like if Austin sucked, you know. No, it's great. It's kind of small. It's like all the there's so much touristy stuff in the downtown area, but we get that here too. How long you been in Nashville?
I've been in and out for about 15 years. I've lived here full time for almost 10.
And what made you decide to go there? Just the music scene?
Yeah, just the music scene. I mean, it's honestly, I'm from, being born and raised in Ohio. My family's still all up in Ohio, but there's just no infrastructure for music. Not in a large scale infrastructure. But anyways.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back to your what were you on a scholarship for? Just out of curiosity.
I was on a full ride for the violin.
Mm.
I am a violinist, believe it or not.
Is that
trained violinist?
Is that what you say, violinist or fiddler?
Yeah,
I guess a fiddle's technically a different instrument, right?
No, it's the same thing. My mom used to say when I was growing up, people would ask her what the difference was, and she'd say Carnegie Hall and Hee Haw.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, but that's just the way you play it. That's it. But I was classically trained for sure.
And that's cool. So, grew up in Southern Ohio. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, walk me through the process of deciding to leave college to go to the military. I mean, obviously, a lot of us joined because of 9/11. But what was going through your mind at the time? What was what compelled you to leave what you were doing and go fight?
Well, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I mean, if I wouldn't have had a scholarship to college, I wouldn't have gone. I grew up blue collar, building and mechanicking, and I really didn't like school, but I found a love and a passion for music and the violin. So, I was giving it a shot, and I was already teetering on leaving since my grandpa was a Marine. My uncle Jimmy was a Marine. My uncle Tony did 2 tours in Vietnam as a Marine. And my great uncle Donald landed on the beaches of Normandy. And so it just kind of had a military history in my family. And I had recently read, believe it or not, I had recently read Black Hawk Down, and then that movie came out. And honestly, I was unaware just as a lot of people are, just of the conflicts and all the different things that are going on and the need for good men to step in and do something. So, I was, and then 9/11 was just, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. It was like, I didn't really need anything else than that, honestly.
And now, I guess looking back on it years later, um, doesn't it doesn't really seem like we got most of that right, you know. Like it.
I think that our individual intentions were correct.
Mhm.
I think that,
Well, with the
but I
the
just,
individual, yeah, for sure. I don't think anybody like I was the same way, you know, felt a sense of duty to defend my country, but once I arrived in theater, I'm like, oh, this is stupid. Well,
yes,
let's get to the fighting and all that stuff. That was fine, but that we're not doing anything over here.
yeah, no kidding. It's like the what do they say? It's $1 million experience you wouldn't pay a dollar for.
Yeah, it reminds me
Kind
of
of
that.
thing.
The White Buffalo, right? The band.
Oh
Are you
yeah,
familiar with them?
yeah.
They have this song
Oh
called
yeah.
"Wish It Was True." It's one of my favorite songs. And one of the verses of the one of the verses of the song is, "Country, I was a soldier for you. I did what you asked me to. It was wrong, and you knew. Country, now I'm a stranger to you. A number, a name. It's true. Throw me away when you're through. Home of the brave and the free, the red, white, and blue. But I wish it was true." I mean, it's we've been going through pretty consistently for the last 40 or 50 years through this period where the political class in America is kind of leveraging the patriotism of people like us to, I guess, just make their
Oh
friends rich, right? And it's it's difficult. People ask me a lot whether I would do it again. And personally, I wouldn't. I don't like the idea of going back and changing anything in my life. But I do. I don't. I tell people now to not join the military because I don't think it's a good idea.
yeah. Well, I mean, especially under the current circumstances, it's like I agree with you 100%, and I wouldn't change anything about my life. But it's an impossible question really to answer, because when somebody asks that, because it's what would it would have been impossible for me to know now what I know, at that particular point in time. But you're exactly right. It's just honestly, it just seems like a whole bunch of bullshit.
Mm. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think you're touched on something there. It's like um, regret doesn't really serve any purpose. I guess you know what I mean.
no, no.
Um,
Well, they say, I like to think that the past causes the past causes depression and the future causes anxiety. Just live in the now.
yeah. And it's yeah. We're certainly not doing ourselves any favors by dwelling on old shit. But we also don't do ourselves any favor by memory holding things and forgetting they happen. I mean,
Exactly.
it's so I feel kind of pulled in multiple different directions. Obviously, I want my country to be protected and strong, but I definitely don't want to continue contributing the best among us to this fucking bullshit, frankly.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, and it's our duty, as those who've gone before, it's as the elders of this next generation to inform them of the history, and make sure that it doesn't get wiped out, and that they understand what's going on, because they're not
Yeah,
going to get told the truth by anybody else.
certainly not. And
You know.
the other part of that is that there's always some fight coming. You know what I mean? Whether it's external or internal, and I mean a literal fight, not activism or anything, but there's always a fight
Yeah.
coming. So I do wonder how we push the lessons we know about war down to the next generation without in a way that doesn't require them to go join the military and fight for stupid bullshit. You know what I mean? Like just the
Yeah, absolutely.
the
Well,
institutional
and I,
knowledge of combat is an important thing to pass down from one generation to another. But I'm not really. I certainly, if the DoD called me today and asked me to come fucking help train people for something, I would tell them to go fuck themselves. You know what I mean? But if an individual asked me, I would obviously help them. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy I find myself in now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's it's hard not to have a distrust, for those, and for all of us. I'm sure that there's a part of you that just feels, and I remember when we pulled out of Afghanistan and they botched Iraq, and those were both botched affairs, but that was the first time that I felt like I had some type of understanding of what my Uncle Tony felt like after Vietnam.
Mm.
That was the first time that I felt, because there was always this sense of pride, and it was just, yeah, look, and then all of a sudden it was like, man, what the fuck, It was just kind of, it was just breathtakingly mind-boggling. Is the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it was just an epiphany moment, and I was like, man, I was like, and they, and in a lot of ways they had it a lot worse than us, and so it's just like, and just to see it almost repeat itself, but almost in a worse way, in a larger scale, global way, economically, just a nightmare. So, and I agree with you 100%. It's very important that we instill, these traits of combat and heroism and training in this next generation. But you also don't want to advise them to go and sign up and work for people who literally don't care about them in any way, shape, or form.
Sure. Yeah. And if you're wondering if anybody at the Department of Defense or political class in America cares about you, you haven't been paying attention, because they don't give a fuck about you. I mean, when the Republican Party sent the Congressional Budget Office a tasking to find ways to, so the deal that's been made is that in order to raise the debt limit, there's going to be significant cuts in the U.S. federal budget. Okay, that's fine, makes sense. But one of the requests, I guess, if you want to call it that, from the Congressional Budget Office was to start a means test for VA disability, right? So we signed a contract. This is all too common. We signed a contract, and it says you get fucked up, we'll take care of you. But if you make too much money, you can go fuck yourself, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
If there's any doubt left in your mind about whether or not these people care about you, you again have not been paying attention. But the other part of that is that there's a lot of people that do care. There's just the regular folks that live in this country. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, we're the people that it's, we're the ones that do the fighting, that do the building, that do the infrastructure, that do the growing, that do to do all the things necessary to keep this impossible thing running, seemingly impossible thing running, and we break our backs, and they just continue to make it more and more difficult to even provide for yourself, let alone get ahead for the average person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
for vets, I mean, that's just nonsense. I mean, it's almost like you're not given benefits. You're punished because you are successor. Not that you're not wounded, not that there's not things wrong with you psychologically, emotionally, physically. Not that you didn't go through, trauma and all these things, and that you actually deserve to be taken care of. But you're basically, nope, you're successful. So we're not going to give you anything. And that's just absolute horseshit.
Kind of par for the course, though. I mean, not even just with regard to the military. Cities do this all the time with union employees, right? So they say, well, you got to take a pay cut now, but we're going to help you on the back end with your pensions. And then all of a sudden you find out that they've been raiding the pension fund for years, and now it's gone. You know what I mean? You can't ever, you should never ever trust government. I mean, that's pretty much the bottom line there.
Yeah. What's the 100%? I mean, we were on another podcast not too long ago, and the guy goes, if there's one thing you could make go away and never happen, what would it be? And it didn't even take me half a second. I was like, government.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and to that point, so the purpose of the show, the reason I call it Citizen, is that there's a lot of people that feel over the last 10 years or so, people have become increasingly political, and now after having paid attention to the process, people are finding themselves more and more politically homeless. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
one inclination is just to divorce yourself from the process entirely. And I warn against that because, as Plato said, if you refuse to take part in your own governance, you're doomed to be ruled by fools, right? You're gonna be ruled by idiots who have some kind of agenda. So the premise of the show
Yep.
is that you can sit around and whine and bitch about your rights or tune out or whatever, and you're going to be a subject of whatever group or person decides to take on that role, or you can, take responsibility for the things in your life that you need to be doing, and in your community especially, and then you're a citizen, right? Now
Yeah.
you've paid the price. Just being born somewhere, it's not enough to me. You know what I mean? Like, well, it's
Yeah.
enough. You shouldn't be abused by anyone just because you were born somewhere and you disagree with what they think. But if you want to be, if you want to participate in society and benefit from society, you should be a benefit to society, right? That's kind of how that
Yes.
works. I think
Absolutely.
every major philosophy has that idea. It's you don't work, you don't eat, basically, right?
You reap what you sow. I
Right.
mean, that's it. You get what you get. You get what you give.
Yeah. So that's the point of the show, and I'm organizing it around a list of principles that I think are important, some stuff that's like kind of fundamental that everybody should kind of agree on. And the first one is I will support and defend liberty against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now you'll recognize part of that because it's the oath of enlistment with a little
Yes.
change to it. Tell me what that means to you. The whole thing. I will support and defend liberty against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Well, I think that's well, it touches on quite a few things. It's first off, it's part of what being a servant really is, and it's one of the most important things that soldiers and Marines and sailors and all of us, all first responders, all protectors, all people with that instinct to protect have in us, and that it's you know you have to be ever vigilant, ever vigilant, paying attention to what's going on, and being prepared. And you have to have that sense of servitude and sacrifice to protect those around you who are unaware of what's going on. And it's just to me it's instinctual. And I love this place. This is my home. It's just the same. It's the same as if someone, I'm gonna expend all energy and resources to protect my home and my family and my community. It's the same with the country and the same with other people. So that's what that, kind of, I hope I
Yeah, yeah.
touched on that properly.
Yeah, and it kind of blends into the second one. The second one is I'll do something every day to help my country, my countrymen, or all men. That's to me that's my favorite one because it's kind of an active thing. It's like a bolo. You're on the lookout now for
Yeah,
opportunities to contribute, right? And I think it's
100%. And you should be.
yeah, it's one of those exercises that'll change the way you think about things. So you get into well, you were raised in Southern Ohio. I was raised in the South, and yes sir, no ma'am is kind of you're institutionalized. You know what I mean? You say it to people that aren't that are young. I still find myself. I'm 42 now. I meet a new person that's like 25. I'm like, yes sir. All right, cool. You know what I mean? It's like, and that was before the
Absolutely.
military too. And now I'm completely fucking institutionalized with this stuff. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. When you're on the lookout to be able to do good stuff for people, and it's holding the door, picking up fucking trash off the ground. People, we have these grandiose ideas. Everybody wants to hit a home run on every swing. You know what I mean? But that's not really what life is.
Yeah. No, not at all. I mean, and doing good things for people is it can be as simple as I mean, your words are so important. That the kindnesses that you say to people, the way you encourage them, you can do good by people all day, every day if you choose to, or you can be a negative life suck if that's what you want
Mm-hmm.
to do too. It's what you choose to do. And I choose to try to be as encouraging and protective and as nice and I like to honor my manners. I'm a huge believer that you should respect your elders, and I'm just a huge believer in making sure that you just take care of the people around you. It's ingrained in me. Like you said, it's not too much different where I come from in Southern Ohio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also a bunch of hippie communes down there, oddly enough. I don't I don't know if you grew up on one of those or not, but there's a bunch down there.
No, I did not grow up on it, but I'm aware.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I think Chappelle lives down there near one of those now.
Yeah, he lives. So my wife is actually from Dayton,
Mm,
and so Dayton is the main city next to Yellow Springs.
mm.
It's right. Yellow Springs is right by Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So that's over where where Dave is. That is a funny place, man.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's like it reminds me of the hippies from Northern California back in the day. Not the ones now that are butthurt about everything, but the hippies where I used to
Oh
buy
yeah,
is the hippies I used to buy acid from. Frankly, if I'm being honest, that's. Um, but
yeah. It's
they
the that's the place where you get your weed.
yeah, but they were libertarian before anybody was even talking about it. You know what I mean? They didn't. I don't know if they even knew they were libertarian. They were just like, hey, leave me the fuck alone, dude. And I think that's a
Yeah,
pretty good way to go through life because pretty quickly you realize if you want to be left alone, you got to leave other people alone. But
yes,
you know, one of the things we've fallen into is that's not my problem, and I kind of go both ways on that. I understand the general concept, and I definitely don't want I don't want anybody telling me what to do because I'm just going to tell them to fuck off, right? And I don't
sure.
want I don't like the impulse that a lot of people have to when they're in a position of power or even as a group of people trying to leverage that into power to exercise some form of control over other people. I don't like that. That's very gross to me that anybody would even think that way, but people do. So somebody's got to
Yeah,
stand around and be aware of that happening and tell them to go fuck themselves. So we can't just tune out of politics. You know what I mean? There's got to be we have to be involved in some manner, I think.
yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, like if you just check out, it's gonna creep. It will become your problem much quicker than you anticipate if you just ignore it.
Yeah, like for example, over the past couple of decades, we've kind of ignored school curriculum.
Oh,
That's a good example. And now everything is bananas. I mean, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life. Um,
it's absolutely upside down,
yeah,
and I don't. Yeah, you're exactly right. We ignored it. There's a lot of things that we've ignored. There's a lot of things I think that we took for granted that we thought just wouldn't happen, that were maybe just Orwellian, perhaps that we didn't. It seemed like science fiction, and now all of a sudden you're a conspiracy theorist if you don't believe in space aliens. It's bonkers, and the stuff that they're getting, there's stuff that they're feeding to our kids in the public education system, and beyond that, the things that they've taken out, it's absurd.
mm. Yeah, and it's there is some level of incredulity I think that's worked against us. Like you said it. It's like I can't. There's no way somebody's going to do that. There's no way
Yeah,
people are going to bring toddlers to drag shows and have grown men wagging their dicks in front of little girls and having little girls
yeah.
stuff dollar
There's
bills
no
into
way
toys.
that's yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's almost as I remember the first time I read 1984. I remember how absurd the idea of there being propaganda everywhere at all
Mm.
times, 365, 24/7, and that's as true as anything in the world. And this nonsense right here, it's so upside down. It's just upside down. It's turned upside down.
So and it's interesting because I did I observed some first party research in the middle 2010s in California about the success or failure of different demographics inside of public education, right? So cross tabs were things like gender, whether they're male or female, race, ethnicity, nationality, whether they were like a first generation immigrant or they were born here, social class, wealth, all these things. And the number one predictor of success in school was just parental involvement. Like regardless of
Yes.
how rich or poor the person was, what their race was, or any of that bullshit, if their parents were involved in their education in some way, then they did better on not on average, but by a wide margin, they did better. So it makes sense that, it makes sense that in the absence of that, these kids are going to be dullards and fall for pretty much anything. You know what I mean? They just don't have the mental wherewithal to mount a sophisticated defense against bad ideas.
No, that's why, I mean, they don't have the ability to consent. If they don't have the ability to consent, how in the world do they have the ability? I mean, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a dinosaur one day. The next day, I wanted to be a frog. It's just there's the critical thinking is not there. I mean, that whole development of your frontal cortex doesn't even, what they say, complete until you're 25 years old.
Right.
Let
Yeah.
alone a child. Children have to be taught things. They have to be taught to share their toys. They have to be taught manners. They have to be, it's just, I mean, almost everything. That's why it's so important. And the absence of the parental aspect and education is absolutely absurd. The fact that you would be okay with just sending your child blindly off to let somebody you don't know just fill their head with whatever they want is just blatantly irresponsible. It's not parenting; it's absentee parenting.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And there's 2 points there. One is the one you're leaning into, which is maybe we should pay closer attention to the people who are opting in to being around other people's children. That seems like a pretty good idea, right? Like if somebody comes,
Yeah,
if somebody came to your house, like a fucking 35-year-old white woman came to your house and knocked on the door, is like, hey, can little Timmy come out and spend 8 hours with me today? You would be like, who are you and what the fuck are you talking about?
yeah, that seems really fucking weird.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre. Not that people who go into teaching are intrinsically weird, but if you strip away the institution of public education, that scenario is bizarre, right? And it is something you should pay attention to. The other thing that you kind of touched on was, some people have the tabula rasa viewpoint of human beings, which is clean slate. Like it's all how you raise them, and then that'll determine stuff. And that's not true. I mean, no living creature is like that. We all have genetic memory. We all have instinct, right? We all have predispositions to one thing or another, and whether it's well, especially with young men, I think it's this is the important one to address, because you brought up kids need to be taught how to share and be polite and stuff like that, but young men have this natural aggression, right? And it's a very useful tool. It's one that you and I use quite a bit throughout our lives to protect ourselves and protect other people. But it is, as any other trait is, it's just a tool, right? And if you don't teach somebody how to control the tool and you don't teach them how to use it responsibly, then they're gonna fucking do it irresponsibly. They're gonna join gangs or fucking do mass shootings or fucking be drug dealers or rapists or whatever the fuck else, right? I mean, we failed an entire generation of kids now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jordan Peterson touched on that completely perfectly when he said, "No, a good man should be dangerous and capable of extreme violence." But also, because if you're not, then you're nothing. If you're not choosing to harness it and use it for good, you should be. You should absolutely be. And there's nothing more dangerous than a emotionally out of control, uneducated, dangerous, violent person. That's why we have such terrible crime rates. It's why we have women are getting raped. I mean, it's barbaric almost. It's a reversion of society.
Yeah, I don't understand. Maybe it started with the whole, like, our generation with the latchkey thing, where we were just kind of at home, and I guess we had the good fortune of when we were at home by ourselves for a lot of the time, especially during the summer. The norm was to go out and play with your friends and shit, go outside. And even if you did stay inside, there was only 3 television stations and nothing particularly fucked up on them. So
And you'd get really bored. You know what I mean? You wanted to go outside, and that's what we did. And as long as you came home before the street lights came on.
Yeah. Now it's like, everybody's got a tablet or a phone, and
Oh,
they have access to pretty much everything at all times. And I don't think it's doing any good for anybody, frankly. I mean, that
no, not at all.
experiencing that boredom as a young child and then having to go figure out how to satiate your boredom, I think is a really good exercise, right? Because you find out what you like. Instead, what we have now is constantly captured attention of these young kids, and it's not it's the attention is being given to whatever is in vogue right now, whatever's trendy right now. So I'm gonna play fucking Roblox or Fortnite or some shit or watch YouTube videos, but it's never unique. You don't see kids like getting really into the violin at 10 years old, for example, like you did. Instead,
Yeah.
what happens is they're all fucking droning on in the same stupid bullshit on the internet.
Yeah, it's just it's nonsense. Well, that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is that's why I work extensively in trying to outfit schools where the government has taken their music programs, things like that, with instruments, and show the kids like how to do those things, because I think that's what shaped us and made us the critical thinkers that we are, and they don't have any reason to critically think because they're born with an electronic pacifier in their hand that just feeds them, and it's constant. It's constant. It's 24/7, 365. You can be plugged in to whatever nonsense or crap on the internet you want to watch. And so, and it's completely it's bonkers to me, man. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, tell me about the outreach with the kids. What exactly you got going on there?
So I have my own violin line in Sweetwater, which is the largest music retailer, one of the largest music retailers in the world, out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And when they picked up my violin line, I was given the opportunity to go up and speak to the corporate office, to speak to everyone, all the sales team. And one of the first things I said was, what I really would like to do is identify school districts all across the United States of America that are either underprivileged or the government is stripped they're through budgets or through levies or whatever. They just don't have any programs, and they didn't even bat an eye. And so that's one of the things that we're implementing with the War Hippies, is going around and if a school doesn't have an orchestra, giving them an orchestra, and then also providing them with tools so that when they're on their phone, maybe they're going to get on and they're going to go watch some violin lessons, because now they have an opportunity to do something and get involved in something that might be creative and help the development of their young minds. And you never know, if I wouldn't have picked up the violin, I would not be here in my life. I definitely would have not gone to college. I wouldn't have met my wife. I would not have the career I have. My path would have been completely different. And I'm so thankful for that. So to be able to provide that opportunity is incredibly important to me. That's one of the the giving back things that, and being a good steward of my talents and my time, and the opportunities that I've been given, and paying that forward to other people. And it's if it changes one kid's life, then we've done something good, and that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, both Hans Zimmer and John Williams are on tour right now, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, so John Williams does all of the Star Wars music and all that shit, and then Hans Zimmer, obviously, he does everything from shit. He's been at it for what, 40 years now, so he's got a pretty broad catalog. But it's like from Black Hawk Down, from Inception, all these movies that he's done over the years.
Oh, dude, it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible. All the Batman Begins movies, like, it's just incredible.
Yeah, he's
and then you've got John Williams, which is just probably the most iconic theme maker in movie history.
Yeah, he's I really like
amazing.
that stuff. Orchestra stuff is pretty interesting to me. But back to the point. Yeah, it's good to do things like that, because the arts are always the first thing to get cut, whenever there's budget cuts like that. And athletics or art, it's one of the two, if not both, depending on if it's a moneymaker for the institution, for the school. But yeah, we're losing all these things, all these challenges, I guess, that you run into early in life. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I'm bored. That's a challenge. What am I going to do with that? Or I need to, I need to do something extracurricular. I have to, because of school. What am I going to do? Because right now it's just like, we're just going to sit in a room and talk about how we should cut our dicks off or whatever. I don't know what the fuck they're doing now. But you don't see the same level of stuff. Like when we were kids, it's like, you got to go volunteer somewhere, or you got to go learn a skill. You got to go play baseball or fucking football or something. You got to get out of here. You got to get out of the house. Get out of here.
Yeah. Go build a fort. I don't give a shit what you do. Just go do something.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important process. And And, I don't know how you replace that in the modern world. Everybody's busy, you know what I mean? They're using that as an excuse to not do these things. But like I'm not personally a parent, but I can't imagine myself just handing my kid a fucking iPad and saying, good luck.
Yeah.
Because I'm just such a disagreeable person already. If I had a kid like that, I would be like, "You're an asshole. Get out of here." But
Just take it from and run it over with the lawnmower.
yeah, 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 yeah. I actually probably would do that. Yeah. But we're just fellas. That you were right. You're right about that. We definitely fell asleep at the wheel in that particular thing, and it's we're dealing with the consequences of that now, and these teen suicide is up. These mass shootings keep happening, and it's not just one group or another group doing it. Like it's inner city folks, black people are joining gangs and doing that shit. Fucking incel white kids are shooting up fucking malls and schools and shit. Mentally ill trans people are doing it.
Had one.
Yeah.
We just had one in Nashville. It's unbelievable, and and they're and just like everything else, they're using it as a political agenda. One side's using it to try to take guns, but the biggest thing about it is it's just such a disservice to all of the people and all of the mental health disorders that are being caused. I think, we're just confusing kids and enabling them to go down these rabbit holes of confusion as opposed to and also like this medicating people far too young with these highly damaging psychological drugs and antidepressants and ADHD medication, and then by the time you're an adult you don't know what the hell's up from down, and you struggle with all these different things. And with the kids, it just breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart because all the signs are there and they're crying out, and all of the tools we have. All of the tools we have, there are people around there, and it's like and it all comes back to this lack of parenting, this lack of leadership in the home, lack of responsibility in the schools. Like you said, there should be there definitely should be higher standards for who's educating our children. And then and they're just absolutely, they're crying out for help. Every time I see something like this, that just looks like a cry for help from just an absolutely tormented young soul, and it breaks my heart to see those things happen. And like you said, and you can't and if it's not evident to you now that it's not just because of one class of people or one race of people, it's systemically it's all the way across the board. And it's because these young children are confused and mentally unhealthy, and we just have just put band-aids upon band-aids upon band-aids on problems that are fundamentally just have not been addressed.
Yeah, that's what's particularly troubling to me about the whole situation is that we kind of know all this stuff, and what's troubling to me is how we're handling it. So a lot of people are just ignoring it. A lot of people are choosing to not have kids because they don't want the responsibilities. Like, dude, what do you think your life is going to be? If you remove all the responsibility from your life, what do you think it's going to be? Here's what we know. People that grow up extremely wealthy, right, who never have any real stress or responsibility, they are cunts most of the time. Almost always.
Yeah.
I mean, finding a trust fund kid that isn't a total piece of shit is very rare, frankly. And it's, they're to blame. It's a world. You can read a book and figure out that you're a piece of shit and change yourself. But we're treating the broader youth community right now the same way that a trust fund kid gets treated throughout their life, which is to say no responsibility, no consequences, no challenges or any of that stuff. And we wonder why we're producing the kind of kids we are.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, when we were growing up, just everything wasn't readily available to you. There was, you had to wait on things. Patience was ingrained in you. And also we weren't given everything. And I know just growing up in the middle class, it just wasn't, I didn't, just because I wanted Nike shoes, I didn't get them. Just because I want, and these devices and things didn't exist. And It's like you said, we basically have almost created. Almost our middle class is almost full of trust fund babies. It's very bizarre. People with seemingly no compassion or empathy. Um, uh, it's the disconnect from the social disorders are insane, and we used to only see that in certain types of people, but now it's so widespread, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and look, I wasn't a big fan of my dad because he was a little heavy-handed, and I don't mean he was abusive, but
Yeah, sure.
I think people look back on their childhoods now. People that are in our age group look back on their childhoods and like, oh, some of that stuff kind of sucked. And
Yeah,
for some reason, we decided to say, well, we're going to make it suck less for our kids. And I understand the compulsion to make a better life for your kids. But we've gotten
yeah.
really confused about what it means to make a better life for somebody. You know what I mean? And I think,
They still have to have discipline.
yeah,
They still have to be disciplined. They still have to, you don't just get everything you want just because you want it. But that's the whole thing. Is it's just you know my our our great grandpa's generation is going to have is not going to have a car, and then your grandpa's going to have a car. His son is going to have three cars. His son is going to have two Lamborghinis,
mm,
and then his kids aren't going to have shit, because it's going to come. It's like that. It's like what is it? Good men create hard times create
hard men.
good
Yeah.
men, hard men. Yeah, it's just the cycle. And so, and I think we're in the downward spin of that cycle because we have, like you said, there's a difference between coddling and making things bearable and comfortable
Yeah, I
and
mean,
protecting.
at some point you got to take the fucking training wheels off, right? I mean, every person that's learned how to ride a bike knows that, and we at some point in Western culture we've decided that taking the training wheels off is cruel, right? That's cruel to do that, to take away somebody's safety net. Well, no, that's how you fucking learn to do things. And
Yeah,
I really, aside from just all the psychological and social issues these kids have, I'm really concerned about institutional knowledge being passed forward. Like we talked about combat, but just medical knowledge that is irrespective of all the politics that are going on, for example, or
yes,
engineering and things like this, stuff that's hard to do. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like,
Trade trade skills,
yeah,
like
are we not going to be able to do hard things in 15 or 20 years? Is that because that sucks? Because our retirement's going to fucking suck. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's. Are we going to have? Is this generation going to pick up going to pick it up and go to work? And that's what that's an unknown right now.
Mm.
Honestly, it's an unknown because they're nobody. It's as an entrepreneur and a business owner. I mean, finding people to work is very difficult, and there's a sense of entitlement, and so it's when I was a kid, it was I was working by the time I was 15 years old, 14 years old, and I could weld by the time I was 16. I built all the neighbors' decks by the time we were 16 or 17, and have just continued to learn all those things. But I have a buddy who owns a heating and air company, and he's like, man, they just got to go to school, and I'll start them out at six figures, but I can't get anybody that wants to do it. Everybody wants to go take a $40,000 job where they get to they get to take their laptop to Starbucks, but they don't, they won't, I can't get anybody to help me with heating and air, HVAC, because they feel like it's below them, and
Mm.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the most common jobs in America is truck driver, and they're having problems now. There's 6 million, well, give or take, we need about 6 million truck drivers at any given time to do business in
Yeah.
America. We've got about 3.5 million at any given time, and that is not. Look, it's a job that's suited to a certain kind of person, I guess. If you like being alone, if you enjoy driving on the road, and especially these days with the ability to communicate hands free or listen to fucking podcasts or whatever you want to do, right? It's not
Yeah.
like it's not like truck driving in the '70s. I'll say that, but we still have and it's a very well paying job. I think truck driver
Yeah.
has the highest median salary of any job that doesn't require a college degree. I believe that is the case, and
Okay.
that to me is fucking crazy because it's not like it's super. It's not like it's super physically demanding. You know what I mean? You got to take care of yourself. Sitting around for that amount of time, you got to do some extra stuff to take care of your body and stuff. And then sometimes you're going to be loading and offloading and stuff. But for the most part, it's not terribly physically demanding. It's not something that is skill prohibitive. You know what I mean? You don't have to be able to. You don't need a fucking 40-inch vertical leap to be able to do this job or anything like that.
Sure.
And it pays really well, and we still can't get people to do it. You know what I mean? So I'm very concerned
Yeah.
about stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean yeah, absolutely, and it's across the board. I mean, nobody, who's gonna fix the infrastructure. We need. I mean, this country has almost it's insane, the infrastructure. If you actually open your eyes and pay attention to, from the electrical grids to the roadways to the sewer systems to everything, it's incredible what has been built before us. It's incredible what they did. I mean, in the cities, the structures and everything, but it all must be maintained and people must maintain it. And it's seemingly less and less that people want to do it. I mean, I didn't choose to be a musician. I didn't choose to have this talent. I was born with it, and I love to do it, and I'm very blessed that I have the opportunity. But I don't do it in any way, shape, or form for fame or notoriety. It's in no way, shape, or form. It just happens to be a skill that I have that I do. But I also do a lot of other things in my life, but what I'm seeing is that it's like the number one thing that when you ask what American youth what they want to be, and it's like the number one answer is like a YouTube influencer or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like a Simon Cowell said it on American Idol like 15 or 20 years ago. He said there's a fame epidemic in this country, and it's going to come back to haunt you. And so it's when you believe that being Jake Paul is more important than being more important than the guy who paves the roads. We have a problem.
Yeah. And to that point, I think the last data I've seen is somewhere between 60 and 65% of the bridges in America are in some state of disrepair. Now this is bridges that cars drive over, and if the bridge collapses, that's not a good day for anybody, right? And that seems like the very baseline thing you would take care of, right? You know what I mean? Like if your front door just fell off of your house, you're not going to be like, oh fuck, that sucks, man, and just walk in and go to sleep. No, you're going to fix your fucking door, right? It just seems crazy to me the way we live.
It's and it's insane. I think if you go, like we were talking about it, if it's like they grow up with no seemingly no understanding of how the infrastructure actually works, and I really do. I meet a lot of young people and they think shit just fixes itself, and or
well, why
they don't
right?
have any
understanding. Why? Because mom and dad fixed everything for them and didn't make them fix their own shit. That's the only way you arrive at if you're an adult human being and you believe that things just fix themselves, there's only one way you got there, and that's by having adults in your life tell you that that's how things work, whether they said it out loud or they behaved in that way, right? It's one of those two things.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, you got to take your clothes over to the it's like when you first go to college, you meet that kid in the dorm who doesn't know how to scramble eggs. Like, how are you alive?
Yeah.
Or doesn't know how to do laundry because they've never done it before. Like, what? Come over here. I'm gonna teach you something real quick. But and that was that was an uncommon thing, I believe. And when I first went to school, I think that was uncommon back then. But I think now it's uncommon to be the kid who knows how to do that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some level of this, and some level of this is due to just having all the information in the world readily accessible all the time and not taking the time to develop skills to memory. You know what I mean? I think it's not all on the parents. I think part of it is the internet, just having access to that shit all the time, because we have
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We don't know anything anymore. We just look it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's it's that saying that the Google ruined the bar
Hmm.
conversation. Because you used to be able to, if somebody would that if you had enough, it ruined the con man, I guess.
Mm.
But that's just a joke. But the no, and you're right. It's not all on the parents. It is totally on the fact that everything is readily available at your fingertips, and you can literally just Google it, and you don't need to know the information beyond that point. You just need to know it long enough to respond
Mm.
to get whatever that is to go away, and then you just move on to the next thing.
And if you apply that same logic to any other facet of your life, let's say we've gone through these stages in human history where we had to farm our food and go out and collect it on a some kind of regular basis, and then it was available at the store, and then we could just order it to our home. If you take that to its logical conclusion, just have someone pour the food right into your fucking mouth, right? Then you're going to be a fat,
Yep.
dumb piece of shit. And that's what we've done to our brains. That's exactly what we've done to our brains. We've taken out all the effort in how to learn information, how to learn skills, even in the social sphere, how to fucking interact with each other. We've when we removed offensiveness from things, then people just started to believe that it was violent to offend somebody. That is dumb as shit. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it,
that's not violence. That's
but
not even that's not violence at all.
yeah, but the result is the same. It's like the result is as if you were just sitting in a fucking uh, uh, lying in a bed in an iron lung, having somebody feed you, and you're perfectly healthy, but somebody feeds you. You're gonna die. You're gonna get diabetes. You're
Yeah.
gonna fucking die like that. That's stupid, but that's what we're doing to our brains.
Mm-hmm. 100%. We're not challenging them, not acting. You touched on that. The offending people, and it's created this like a like a worldwide safe space, or this bizarre culture amongst people. That's like you said, is when you start thinking that it's violent to offend a person, or to challenge or question a person on any front. I mean, like you said, that's stupid, because and that means obviously that you have no idea what violence actually is in any way, shape, or form, and you're just being led to the slaughter, and that's what is it's alarming, to say the least. And so, but I mean, what are the thing is, I think we've identified all of these things, and I think that we're getting to a point where our generation is going, okay, we're going to have to come up with some solutions to
Mm.
this stuff, because if this goes on like this, we're doomed.
Yeah, and I'm
and
I'm not a
and
hundred
I don't
percent.
think.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm not 100% sure. It's got to be a multifaceted approach. People ask me a lot, and we're not really on this subject right now, but people ask me how I would deal with the school shooting stuff, because people have a lot of different opinions about it. But just for clarity's sake, there've been 175 school shooting deaths since Columbine, so that's 24 years basically. It's about 7.3 per year. And at any given year, there's 77 million kids enrolled in schools. So we're talking about a very small minority here that we're dealing with. And that's always going to be the case when you're dealing with large data sets and crime. It's always going to be small groups of people causing trouble, right? But that doesn't mean it's not being caused. So how do you deal with something like that? Well, we don't want to upend our entire system just to deal with a couple of assholes, you know what I mean? But we do want to protect our kids. So you got to harden the site, you got to put better access control points, maybe have security and stuff like that. But that doesn't solve the problem with America's soul. You know what I mean? Like there's still, like, as you pointed out
No.
before, there are these kids out there that are suffering, and that doesn't remove the responsibility for their own actions in any way. So I mean, and yeah, every time one of those assholes gets smoked, I applaud, because fuck them. But you know, at some point we do have to take a more active approach to preventing that. I mean, every time this shit happens, we start talking about gun laws and shit, but nobody says, well, how could we have stopped the kid instead of thinking about, well, they bought a gun 2 weeks ago and then they showed up somewhere and shot somebody. what about the previous 3 years before that? You know what I mean? What was
Yeah.
happening in that person's life that we could have interdicted, I guess. We never really think about that.
Yeah, that is the issue. That's the thing. Let's talk about the core issue. Let's not talk about, whatever your political agenda is or whatever our government is trying to use to take away our Second Amendment rights. Let's stay away from that. Let's talk about the core issue. Like over the last, like you said, over the last 3 years, who was paying attention to this child?
Mm.
Who was not, who was, my parents would have known something was wrong.
Well,
And
this woman from yesterday or from this week, her parents did know something. First of all, she was 28 years old, but
yeah, she was a woman.
her parents
That was
her parents knew. They said when they were interviewed, they said they asked her what was in the bag when she was on the way out of the house, and she told them to fuck off basically and left. It's like if you even
yeah.
thought to ask that question, you know what I mean? You knew something was wrong.
Yep. Absolutely. But and that's a very difficult thing because that's a scenario that I wasn't involved in, and but it's like and that was and yesterday was different because yesterday was a fully grown person going
Mm.
in and murdering children. That was an act of domestic terrorism. All of it is an act of domestic terrorism. That was something on a different level. That was an adult with a mental health crisis and had a mental health breakdown that decided to run into a school and murder innocent people. And so if it's gotten to the point where and I think it all stems down to the fact that everybody's given everything they want at all times, and no one is being taught or given the opportunity to face any of their struggles or creatively problem solve. They're not prepared to actually deal with real life situations when they happen to them, because they never had to deal with life growing up. And I think that was just that right. What happened yesterday is a symptom of what's going on.
Yeah, and it's
And
it is a symptom, and it's the same symptom being experienced by inner city kids getting involved in gangs, by fucking Middle Easterners joining ISIS. It's all the
yeah,
same symptom of the same disease.
yep.
Before we get out of here, there's one last principle that I ask a lot of people about because I just think it's interesting to see how people frame their response to this. But it's the last one. It says, "I will live a life worth dying for." What does that mean to you?
Well, it's everything. It's that's a very deep question. So to live a life worth dying for is, in my opinion, to get up every day, to be thankful, to be so self-aware, and to be so servant-hearted. I mean, it's to sacrifice. It's to know that when the tough things happen, when I saw the burning building, I ran into it. When I told my wife I was going to marry her, I have held up my sense of responsibility, my duty, my honor, all these different things. But also that I've left an impact on the people around me in a positive way and helped to change people's lives, whether it was in any capacity. So that when I move on from this place, it's an okay thing, and the people behind me are prepared for the fact that I'm gone. So it was worth dying for. So all of the influence and all the things that I've left behind, and the infrastructure that I built, and the people that I've influenced are prepared and can handle the fact that I died. My life was worth living, and it was and people I was worth loving, and I loved, and then and that when I go, everybody's, it can go on. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're building something that other people can use into the future. Not maybe it's a house, maybe it's good kids. Who knows, right? Like
Yeah,
keeping society together, as we've seen recently, is not the easiest thing in the world. And when enough people opt out of their responsibility, then we end up in a situation as we are in currently, and it fucking sucks, to be honest.
yeah,
Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find War Hippies if they want to check out your music.
You can find me War Hippies. You can go to warhippies.com. You can go all the Instagram at War Hippies. You can go to War Hippies on Facebook, all that type of stuff. You can check our tour schedule out. All of our music, our merch, all that stuff is all available. And if you do come and see us, come say hi, because Scott and I always love to say hi to people when they come out and see us.
And you guys are on tour right now?
Yep, we're on tour. We're leaving for Louisville today, and then we're heading to Ohio and Pennsylvania for 2 shows with Travis Tritt.
Sweet. Sounds good. Well, look, man, thanks for coming today. It's been a good conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. It's a lot of good points made.
Yeah. We'll see you soon. Are you guys playing in Texas anytime soon?
We were just in Montgomery. You're over in Austin?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll look at the schedule and see when we get down that way. But we get down there quite often because Scott lived down in the Woodlands, Woodlands area.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Well, let me know. And you guys all go on the interwebs. Check out War Hippies. Good music. Good people. Appreciate you coming today.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you all for listening. This has been Citizen.